In today's video, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of simple tube amplifiers. We're going to talk about the case for and against them. So if you're on the fence deciding whether or not you need an amp with plenty of controls, or you just want something that's simple and plug and play, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of deciding about either. It's probably worth starting with what defines a simple tube amplifier in this simple guy's mind. So we're going to start with that, and then we'll get into a discussion for and against. So these kind of amplifiers are generally pretty limited when it comes to the control setup. Whether it's a 5-watt amp, a 20-watt amp, or a 30 or more, they're usually defined by just a couple of controls on the top. Some popular examples of this would be the Fender 57 Tweed Deluxe, the Fender Champ, the Artist TweedTone 12A, the Supro Delta King 8, the Joyo Sweet Baby amplifier, and plenty of others. Odds are you've seen a million of them out there. Oh, there's definitely some crossover amplifiers here that keep it simple but offer reverb or have power attenuation on the back. I'm not talking about either of those. So we're going to talk about mostly amplifiers here that don't have a master volume, and they also don't offer more usually than just a tone control. All right, let's kick things off by talking about the things that I really love about these simple amplifiers from experience reviewing them over the years, and also still holding on to the Artist TweedTone 12A down here. So the first thing is that it's got a very simple interface. You plug in, you turn the volume up, you turn the tone up, and that's generally it. Now, sometimes you might find amps that have different toggle switches and all that kind of stuff for bright or normal voicing, but basically these are still very simple amplifiers. There's no reverb, there's no nothing. One of the things that I've come to appreciate about very simple amplifiers, and I think the Eric Clapton Tweed Deluxe was one of the best amps at this, is you plug in and you don't miss reverb. You don't miss the 3-band EQ or a presence control, all that kind of stuff all combined. It's just a nice simple amp that sounds amazing when you plug into it. The Fender 57 Tweed sold me one of my guitars. It had, I think, a volume and a tone control, and it sounded amazing. So when they're done right, and you can plug any guitar off the wall in a shop into them, or any from your collection into one of these amplifiers, and it sounds great, you don't feel like you're missing out on anything, this is what makes a really great simple amp. The second thing you gotta love about these type of amplifiers is, generally speaking, they're very pedal friendly. And I would argue that they may sound better with pedals than without, especially if you want to get a lead tone. But they're generally a higher headroom, clean tone, even if they're a 5-watt amplifier. One of the things I learned about the Joyo Sweet Baby 5-watt amplifier, which is a tube amp, is you can turn that up quite a bit before it starts to clip, and same with the Artist TweedTone 12A down here. So you got to get a very pedal-friendly format. It doesn't matter whether you're using overdrives, boosts, distortion pedals, it's going to work on the most part. While some amp manufacturers might not use the best speakers, if I'm thinking about some of the Fender amps I've tested over the years, or even a Bad Cat that's just got a simple volume and tone control, you can plug your favorite pedals into it and get a really great tone. Now, this third thing might be the most important, and that's getting that authentic, over the edge of breakup tube sound that happens once you start cranking up these amplifiers. This is what they're best known for, especially the Tweed amplifier variety, because you turn them up, you get a really, generally a great mid-frequency sound, which is great for cutting the mix, but they also clip at a point that's not going to blow your ears out on the most part. Again, there's variations on this, but most of the lower watt amplifiers, you can kind of crank them and get a really gnarly sound. And if you're a fan of using your volume control to get it to clean back up and then turn back up and get your overdriven sound just by cranking up a volume control, that's what makes these amps a whole lot of fun. The last thing I'm going to throw in here is the fact that the amp won't give you any sort of option paralysis like you might find with some digital modeling amplifiers that have menus and all that kind of stuff, or even larger amplifiers that might have up to 4 channels and a boost circuit, for example. So if you like to keep things simple, this is definitely the way to go. Now let's talk about the case for an amplifier that might have more controls, and there's some really obvious things to think about here, at least in my mind, and I'll share this with you. And if I've missed anything, just let us know in the comment section. I do reply to the comments on my YouTube channel. Now let's talk about the case against getting an amplifier as simple as the ones I've mentioned in this video. And the first thing I can think about is that if you play only Stratocasters, for example, you might be able to get a really great tone, but if you play humbuckers occasionally, the bass response might be too much and you might need to dial some of that out. But guess what? You're out of luck. And say, for example, your guitar needs a little bit more mids to cut the mix. you're out of luck. You basically just get what you're given. And in those scenarios, if you play a lot of different guitars, I can highly recommend an amplifier with at least a 3-band EQ and or with a presence control. The second thing that comes to mind would be this, that it's very limiting when it comes to the types of overdrive and distortion tones you get. And I'm going to reference another amplifier here in my collection, the Marshall DSL 40CR. I've got 4 channels on there. 2 are identical, so you can kind of dial them in identically when it comes to their crunch tone. But then I've also got a higher gain channel and a clean channel, and all of which are foot switchable if you get the right foot switch. So yeah, you're very limited in what you can get out of a single channel amplifier, but that's part of the fun for a lot of people, and I totally get that as well. Now, if you're a pedal player predominantly, then this might not be a huge deal for you, but it is one of those things where if you just want more versatility out of an amplifier, then you definitely need to get one with multiple channels and also a full range of EQ options. Now, while pedals can sound great through a very simple tube amplifier, sometimes they don't, especially once you start talking about speakers smaller than 12 inches. Sometimes you can just get too much high-end attack, or you've just got too much low end depending on the distortion pedal that you're using. So you have to kind of keep these things in mind. And most guitars don't give you a bass roll-off control. There are some out there that give you a high pass filter, but a lot of them don't. So if your favorite overdrive or distortion pedal's plugged in and it's all of a sudden too muddy on the top end or way too shrilly and bright on the top end, again, this is where you'd be better suited with an amplifier that gives you more controls. Speaking about the whole landscape of pedals and effects, if you're someone who likes to play ambient style music, or you might be doing church stuff or whatever, where you need all these different delays and reverbs and all that kind of stuff to create a lot of atmosphere, then there's no effects loop on most of these amps. So this is a huge consideration for a lot of people. I'm even shocked in 2025, there's some digital modeling amplifiers that don't give you an effects loop, which I think is kind of crazy. So yeah, it is what it is. Let us know if an effects loop's a deal breaker for you. The takeaway here is if you love to use time-based effects like reverb and delay, and or if you love modulation effects and you want to use an effects loop, you're generally out of luck and you'll be running everything into the front end of the amplifier, which you can sometimes get away with, but it usually doesn't work as well, especially with reverbs. Now I'm going to talk about what I like, and I encourage you to leave your thoughts down in the comment section. So I prefer amps that give me at least 2 channels that have reverb, and that sometimes, if I can, also have a master volume, because it's just opening up a world of possibilities there when it comes to either live use or home use. You can kind of get a nice crunchy tone at a lower volume, or of course you get a little bit of reverb, and sometimes I find reverb inspiring to kind of bounce off in my playing. While plugging into a simple tube amplifier with a dry sound can be fun if the tone is instantly gratifying, there's times there where my ear just wants something a little bit different. Anyway, thanks for watching.